Beautiful and Brutal Yard, new album by J Hus. It came out yesterday as we're recording this on the 14th of July, 2023. It is 19 songs, 1 hour and 3 minutes long. It's J Hus's first album since 2020's Big Conspiracy. So approaching 3 years, so really excited to get into this. Obviously, with it coming out just yesterday as we're recording this will be more of a first reaction than a typical in-depth album breakdown. If you're interested in those typical album breakdowns, you can check them out here on our YouTube channel, Two Stubborn Nigerians. Whilst you're here, please do like a video, subscribe, and ring that bell to stay abreast of notifications of all of our videos. You can check us out on all of our socials as well. So on Twitter, we are at 2S Nigerians. On Instagram and TikTok, it's at 2_stubborn_Nigerians. And of course, you can catch our podcast wherever you get your podcast from, or Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Amazon Music at 2 Stubborn Nigerians. But really excited to get into this album. Like I said, it's J Hus's first release since 2020. Obviously, we had the lead-off single, Who Told You, featuring Drake, which released a few weeks ago. We talked about that a bit on the podcast, but not too much because I hadn't really listened to it. But you had. How many listens of this album have you been able to get in since it came out?
A few. I can't give you an exact number because I was pretty much just listening to it all of yesterday as background music, but a few listens.
So we got a couple listens in. I didn't get too many in, maybe like one or two. But I got a general gist of the album, general vibe anyway. But like I said, this isn't going to be typical in that. This is very much a first reaction. So with that, let's just jump straight in, head first into the shallow end, for real. What's your first reaction, bro?
It's a weird one. It's a weird one for me. It's a weird one. I had a very weird journey with this album. And I think the ultimate conclusion that I reached was it's a good album and it would be good for majority of people. If majority of artists drop this album, I would be a very big fan of this album. But J Hus having dropped this album, I think it is a drop in quality from what we've been getting from J Hus from his last two albums. I think is not quite hitting that same mark. J Hus is someone who, with his last album, he showed that he can get into deeper subject matter, make points with his music, make it actual, like, tell us stories more so, tell us messages of hope or important messages that need to be spoken through his music. With his first album and his second album, he showed us that he's one of the most like vibes artists. Like he's someone who can bring a vibe that not many artists are capable of bringing in today's culture. And I think this album does both of those things not as well as he's shown us he's capable of in the past, if that makes sense. I think in terms of messaging throughout this album, it's cool. It's cool. It's good. It's cool. It's cool. It doesn't ever do anything outrageously amazing. You know, it's never a point where it's like, wow, this is such a deep story. There's only like maybe one point here where I think the line is not many people could like look their mums dead in the face, telling them everything's all right, whilst knowing that there's something missing from her kitchen drawer. That was a crazy line. Like that line, the way he delivered that line was insane. That was the only moment throughout this whole album where I was like, wow, okay, he's spitting, like he's talking something that is like crazy. Everywhere else, it was just essentially remixing the same message over and over and over again. Girls living life on the streets and vibes essentially. So messaging wise, it wasn't anything crazy. Vibes wise, I don't think it was anything crazy. I don't think there were many moments throughout this album where it was like, wow, I could just bop to this forever and ever and ever. Now, that being said, it's still J Hus. It's still J Hus. So J Hus at his worst is still a better vibes artist than most people out there. But comparing J Hus to J Hus, this is probably his worst showing when it comes to just the vibes he was able to put out. So I don't know. It's a weird one. It's a weird journey I had with this album.
You a big pussy for real, man. Doesn't say probably. This is easily his worst album. Like this is it's easily his worst album. It's his longest album. It's annoyingly long. It does not need to be this long. That was my initial first reaction. Is why the fuck is it an hour and 3 minutes and 19 songs and it doesn't need to be. I was sat there thinking, okay, maybe he'll show me that it needs to be an hour and 3 minutes long. It didn't. It didn't show me it needs to be an hour and 3 minutes long. So I think it's easily his worst album. That's not to say it's terrible. I agree with you that J Hus at his worst is better than a lot of artists at their best. But this is a regression. This is for me. This is a regression, especially, and you touched upon it when you look at Big Conspiracy and some of the themes that he was picking on there, and some of the things that he was saying. That felt like such an elevation from just being vibes, and so I think he set a standard which he didn't necessarily meet on this project in terms of messaging. And then when you think about it in terms of vibes, I agree with you. It doesn't have the same top quality J Hus vibes as usual. I think there's an amazing 5-song stretch of Palm Tree, Nice Body with Georgia Smith, Masculine with Burna Boy, Come Look, and then Cream with C-Biz. Sidebar, not C-Biz, CB. With CB. Sidebar, I'm gonna send Georgia Smith a ring some point this year. I'm gonna send it to her. I don't think I'm gonna be in the same room as her, so I'm gonna send it to her in the post. Just let her know.
PO box
Second PO box thing. Secondary sidebar. Him and Banner have magic. Absolute magic. I love it. Long may it continue. Absolutely sensational.
Yeah.
But yeah, the vibes were not up to the standard of J Hus, and then the message wasn't there. And it did end up getting very repetitive. You know, like I picked up on the exact same bar that you mentioned, like how many people can look their mum in the eye, say everything's all right when there's something missing from my kitchen drawer. And I think, that's mad. That's mad. And that's a good story. That's a creative way to tell that aspect of the story. Beautiful. But you've been saying that all album. Yeah. And it's like, how many, like, it's again, how many, like, by the time I got to like playing chess or bimbo, by the time I got back to the down end of the album, how many times are you going to tell me that you love the bunda?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I got the message. That's why I said it doesn't need to be 19 songs. So I got the message like 6 songs ago. So this could have been like age or meme. This could have been an email for real. So yeah, it didn't. I didn't have expectations for this album, to be honest with you. Like I wasn't sat here as one of the people. Like I think maybe yourself or people on social media or people in the UK generally, it's like, oh my goodness, J Hus is coming, big deal. Like it wasn't like J Hus drops, I have to rush to listen to this. Like it was just okay, J Hus are dropping. I know I like J Hus music, I'll listen to it. But I said it from when I heard Who Told You. Like it didn't fill me with excitement for a project. I would listen to it because I'm sure J Hus is going to drop good music. And like I detailed, there is great music on here. But yeah, my first reaction is one of disappointment and one of, I think this is a drastic step backwards, quite frankly, for Hus.
I agree. We're on the same page. We're on the exact same page here. It's a weird one because listening to it, as you said, like the songs that are good on this album are fantastic. Quite frankly, Masculine might be my first name is Bala, last name is Clava. I was losing it. I was like, yep, I want to hear this when I'm outside. Like this song might make me have to leave my house for real. But there's just a lot of songs on here where essentially it's not the same J Hus that said, I left in a black Benz, came back in a white. Like, like J Hus had been making vibe songs. This is Fanta No Ice, J Hus. Since I can remember at this point, since sixth form, I've been vibing out to J Hus. So listening to this, it was a massive regression. It was a massive regression. And one thing I noticed just from listening to it so much, and it's not something I've researched, so I could be wrong here, but the whole time I listened to the album, there were at least like 2 or 3 songs where J Hus does what he usually does. He lets the beat rock for a bit before he hops on. And in my head, I was like, oh, okay, we're about to hit J5, just because J5's tag is almost synonymous with J Hus at this point in their careers. Like they've been a dynamic duo for so long. And listening to this album, I didn't hear that J5 tag once, which leads me to believe that J5 might not have produced anything on this album, which is very believable, given some of the rumors that came out a few years ago between those two. I'm not going to get into it here because I don't know how true they are. But given some of those rumors, given the fact that I didn't hear the J5 tag, is that the magic that's missing from this album? Is that where the vibes seem to be lacking a bit? Because I know J5, when J Hus hops on some of those J5 beats, it's always a hit. Like J Hus on J5 beat is literally almost guaranteed to be a hit. I don't think I've ever heard anything where those two have worked together and it wasn't a song that went crazy for at least a year, if not two.
I don't think so. I don't see that as an excuse because I don't think, for me, production wasn't the issue. Like, I think the album sounds fine production-wise. I think also, like, I should have mentioned this before, and I was seeing some tweets about this going around this morning, and it's very true. We got to give J Hus his flowers for the ability he has to mix in so many different genres so well. I do think the features are a real highlight of this album. I think Georgia sounds amazing on Nice Body, Burner sounds amazing on Masculine, CB on Cream, Bills on Comeback, Popcorn on Killy. Like, I think the features, maybe other than Drake in my personal estimation, sound great. So I think you need to, I want to give him some shine and some credit for that and his ability to make sure that everyone who comes and features on his project sound their best, and the way he's able to easily dip in and out of those genres as well, which is really dope. But I didn't think production was a problem. It just felt unfocused. It felt unfocused. It felt like what do you have to say to me? And if it's not a lot, then I don't need 19 songs of attempted vibes. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'd need less is more than, in that sense of like, give me some focused vibes hits. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't need this over 19 songs for all. I think that's one of the biggest issues. I think if we like stripped it back and cut it down, because then it wouldn't be as repetitive. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wouldn't be like, okay, I get it. Like, how many times do I need to hear like you're another bunda? How many times do I need to hear, you know, if you don't suck my kids, it's over? Like, do you know, like, bro, like, okay, I got the message now. Like, what's the other message? And if there isn't one, cool. We don't need this message that amount of times. That's what I got. Now, what I will say, and this is not a qualifier because I think we both know this to be a reality, some of these tracks will probably grow on us because we'll hear them in different forms. That's just the nature of it. That's the nature of his music. It'll be catchy. Maybe you'll become a meme, and then you'll hear it. And maybe in a month's time, we'll come back and say, "Yo, I didn't deep this song at the time, and that's good, and that's fair." But again, by holding to the standards of his past two, that was never the case. That was never the case. Man didn't leave Big Conspiracy thinking, man, I can't wait for this to grow on me in a month's time. Man didn't leave Common Sense thinking, man, I can't wait for this to grow on me in 2 months' time. Man didn't hear I want to get friendly with her and think, man, I can't wait for this one to hit me or like a shot in the dark in a month's time. No. Man heard it and said, yeah, I understand. I want to get friendly with her. Some men stopped having banter with Ice because of J Hus.
Fam.
You know what I'm saying?
Niggas suddenly start calling themselves ugly.
Like, and it was because me at the time when I was in that medium ugly category, I was like, y'all niggas stay over there. This has been my lane. I got real estate here. You're not gonna come up and fuck up the neighborhood on me.
Yeah. Oh man, it's a tough one because I'll say beginning of the year when J Hus dropped the billboard that made it clear that he was getting ready to drop an album, I was probably one of the most excited people in the UK flat period straight. Like, I was very, very excited, as you alluded to earlier. When he dropped It's Crazy, I'll say it's called It's Crazy. Let me check. Yeah, when he dropped It's Crazy, my excitement went down a bit, as I stated a few episodes back, because that song to me wasn't the greatest. In the context of the album, sounds much better, I must say. That song sounds much better. It flows into it much nicer. I'm less angry at that song than I was the first time I heard it. But that song, as a single, made me less excited for the album. Who Told You brought back some excitement for me, a little bit of excitement, because to me that's a vibe song. That's the type of song that J Hus, that type of song that could be played in the club, and at bare minimum, J Hus song should be able to be played in the club and go crazy. And I think Who Told You is one of those songs that can easily do that. So it brought back a little bit of excitement, but just seeing like there'd been videos of J Hus like freestyling and things, and those have taken away from some of the excitement. And I think it's disappointing. It's disappointing to say the least, because when you have an artist of J Hus's stature, J Hus like easily one of the biggest stars in the UK when it comes to music. Like he is a force of nature in the world of music. So for him to be this massive force and for the album not to immediately hit the same way that his last two albums immediately hit, the same way that his mixtape and his EPs previously hit, is worrying. Is worrying, especially in a world where I'm looking around and it's like, cool, you may not be going crazy, but I can't necessarily say, okay, there's a lot of other UK artists right now going insane that can replace someone the caliber of a J Hus. There's still other people going crazy, but I don't think we have an artist at the level that J Hus is at going crazy. And it's worrying, but it's also it's worrying at the same time. It's promising for the future, because it would be nice to see who steps up in this vacuum if a vacuum does become evident.
I think someone's already stepped up. You're just not that big a fan of them because it's a generational thing.
Who would you say stepped up into that spot?
In a different music like context, Central C. Like if you look at what Central's done, like if you forecast to us being like sixth form time now, could you imagine, like, do you see what I'm saying? Like Central with what he's doing now, both here and in the US, from time that they're supposedly going to be I don't know what the Ice Spice song is, but apparently he's dropping a remix of one of them now. Like you're looking at someone who's just transporting into being the face for a minute. You know what I'm saying? So I think again, like it's not necessarily palatable to, I mean, I'm a huge Central C fan, let me not lie to you. It's not necessarily palatable to us, but we've been Hus fans now for close to a decade. You see what I'm saying? So it's different. But I think if there is that vacuum, I think someone's probably already stepping into it. Ultimately, I agree with everything you said, man. It's just a disappointing reality, because again, like you got there. I was going to interject, but you got there in the end of, like, it's not just like what his last two albums did. It's damn near every single time J Hus drops something. Do you know what I'm saying? Every single time J Hus drops anything, it's like, oh, this is madness. This is different. This is why no one can do it at the level that he's at. This is why he can go away for a couple of years, we not hear anything, and come back, and the excitement is still right here at the apex, because his back catalog tells us it should be. So it's disappointing that wasn't the reality this time. I do think it'll probably grow. I think some of these tracks will probably do well. I think the album will ultimately do well. I've seen some really good reviews on social media, so it seems like where our opinion now is in the minority. We'll see how that goes over the next few days and weeks as shit goes through. But yeah, it was not the best. Not the best. I think is the nicest way to put it. I mean, the unnice way to put it is, hey man, nigga, step the fuck up.
I mean, criticism aside, what I will say, the bail that I'll give J Hus in this case is, yesterday when I was listening to it in the pouring rain, pretty much morning to evening, and the weather was dead. Like it was.
And we already know that you can't stand the rain.
I can't. I can't. No matter which way you do it. I can't stand the rain with Missy, and I can't stand the rain with like, yo, whoever you want to put there. Yeah, I don't think that was necessarily the environment to listen to that in, especially because this morning I woke up, the sun was out, I played it, and it did have a different vibe. So it'll be interesting to see how that sounds under different weathers, in different environments. But as of right now, yeah, it's not it's not something that it's not something that I'm screaming about. But as I said, J Hus at his worst is still worth listening to, in my opinion.
So what you're saying is it's not given.
Yeah, let's end this podcast, man. What, Two Stubborn Nigerian rankings? I'm
Let's
dead
take
ass.
this go. Let's take this go. They ain't got nothing else. I'm planning for time now. It's just not given. You know what I'm saying?
I'll go to the scales. The Two Stubborn Nigerian album rankings go as such. I hate I ever listened to this. Won't be listened to again. Whole lot of mid. Might stay in rotation for about a week. Pretty damn good. Serious project. And then either me and or Paul can give the album our 50% stamp of approval. In the case that we both give it our 50% stamp of approval, the album will become Two Stubborn Nigerians approved. Paul, what are you giving this album?
That 5-song stretch that I mentioned saved this motherfucker. So I'm going to give it a whole lot of mid, or else it would have been a lot worse. There are some highs. I really like Palm Tree. Like when I heard that song, I was like, this is what I'm here for. And obviously Georgia dropped. I think Georgia's album, it should be R&B. It will be R&B. It'll be more soul. And I think it's going to be sensational. Burner just continued. Burner is in ridiculous form right now. The last 2 years.
That
is
ridiculous. Crazy.
We're talking about rarefied air type form. Like this is a run of runs. So that 5-song stretch that I mentioned earlier, I've really saved it. So I'll go a whole lot of mid.
I'm gonna go pretty damn good. I know I've sat here and criticized this album for the last 25 minutes now. That being said, though, I'm going pretty damn good because when it comes to J Hus has given us nothing but, for me, stamp of approval type work. So pretty damn good is why he's been criticized today, because this album should have just been another thing added on to the legacy that is excellent. And when you fail to meet that mark, we're only comparing you to yourself at this point because you've proven that you can't be compared to your contemporaries. It's not fair. So pretty damn good. It's disappointing for J Hus, but overall, it's an album that I think I could listen to. It's an album that I think is definitely going to stay in rotation for at least the next couple of weeks. It can live for me. It's not bad music by any stretch of the imagination. And as you said, that 5-song stretch, and plus a few singles here and there, like Bim Bim is also another one of them that lives, that goes crazy for me. Who Told You, the song I love. It's a great album, man. And as I said, man, masculine. First name is Bella, last name is Clava. I'm gonna lose my mind to that all summer. I already know. All right, that's gonna be a song that lifts me. So I'm going pretty damn good, and I'm gonna keep it at that, man. That is our review of J Hus's Beautiful and Brutal Yard. If you enjoyed it, please like the video, share the video, subscribe, ring that notification bell. If you have other albums that you want us to review, then leave a comment. Let us know what you want us to listen to. Let us know if it's an album that you love, if it's an album that you hate, and you want to see if we hate it too. Who knows, man? We might hate it more than you, or we might change your mind and make you decide that you love the album instead. Leave a comment, let us know. And you can follow us on our socials. Our socials at 2S Nigerians on Twitter and at 2_stubborn_Nigerians on Instagram and TikTok. If you enjoyed this and want more, then there are videos suggested here, and you can hit this button to subscribe.